Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I am president and co-founder of the KMT2B Dystonia Foundation.
And my name is Lynn, and I am the vice president of the KMT2B Dystonia Foundation.
So, if you don't know, my son is Max, and Max presents differently than Lynn's daughter. So, Max is 5, and he does not currently have dystonia. He does have neurodevelopmental disorder. And so, I'm here to ask Lynn about her experience.
Yes, and June has dystonia. And if you look on many of the sites, she would what I would consider a classic case. She developed typically until age 6.5, and then started dystonia in her left gait, her left foot specifically. And over time, it did progress into other areas of her body.
So, Lynn, Max doesn't have dystonia, but obviously, once he got his KMT2B diagnosis, that was the very first thing that we thought about. And so, what did it first look like in June? I know you said it was like in her foot, but what did that look like and kind of how did it progress?
Yeah. And so June, like I said, was 6.5 when we started to notice. She was no longer running on the playground. She was doing this awkward gallop. So that kind of had us start to wonder what was going on. But it was her teachers actually that were watching her at recess. And several times in the course of a week, she had fallen as she was trying to run, which is what prompted us to start the process of finding doctors and figuring out what was going on that led us to the diagnosis. But from there, June did really well, and the dystonia was really slow moving for 4 years, really. It really wasn't until this fall that we started to see it start to progress a little quicker. So it did start in her left foot and stayed there. It did get a little worse over time, but it was basically still the foot. Last summer, we started noticing it in her limbs, her hands, and they would just do some jerky motions. It really wasn't fluid. She had a hard time keeping her hands still. Her handwriting did get a little worse. It was always not great, but it got worse over time. And then her speech was starting to get impacted. And like I said, it was pretty slow moving, and we've done OT and PT and speech the whole time. And I think that for June, keeping those muscles moving really did help the progression stay at bay. But then this fall, it did pick up. And so we did not want DBS, deep brain stimulation. Matt and I, my husband, we're trying not to do that because it is a huge, it's a huge process and something you really have to really think through. And at the time, June was able to handle the dystonia, and it wasn't truly impacting her day to day. But one night at the dinner table, I asked her, I'm like, if you could have a surgery to help, would you want it? And she said, yes, please. And so that's when we started down the road of DBS. And our doctors have been wonderful walking us through the whole process and helping us know what's happening each step as we continue. And so our doctor said the best way to describe it simply to people who don't understand, it's like a pacemaker in your brain, for your brain. And so it helps regulate those jerky movements. And the goal is to help your mobility become more fluid, to make it through your day-to-day tasks.
I think most of us, when we get our KMT2B diagnosis, we learn about DBS. But how did you guys decide, like, now was the time? Was it because June had told you yes, but I know there were conversations that had to have happened before that.
And we had gone to see our neurologist before June had said that she was ready. And he was sharing with us how he felt it to help families learn when was the right time, because each child is different. Each dystonia case is different. As we know, KMT2B looks different across our community. So I think it's a very personal decision for each family. But we did try two different medications for June that did not work for helping dystonia. And it was progressing, it was getting worse. And so when we met with the neurologists, they said she was a very good candidate. And hearing that, And hearing June helped us decide that it was time. And we wholeheartedly trust our team. We call it Team June. They they're wonderful at what they do, and because of that, we felt that we were ready.
Okay, so what is the pre-DBS process when it comes to what did you guys have to do to prepare for this?
The first step with our team, they showed us, and June, we were in a room and they showed us what the actual machine looks like, what this DBS looks like. They showed you the leads that go down the neck, they showed you the battery pack, and they explained that whole process. So that was step one, was like meeting the team, seeing what a DBS looks like. And we had to get an MRI.
Okay.
She's already had an MRI, but we did have to get a second MRI so they could make sure she was again a good candidate, and that came back, and she was. Our neurologist, and I appreciated this, suggested that we get at least one or two other recommendations from other neurologists or other healthcare systems to see if she was a good fit. And that just shows me that our neurologist wants us to know everything and make sure we were sure. And we did. And they all said she was a good candidate, and they all agreed that our team was an excellent team. And so we stayed where we were. So that was the first thing. And then really after that MRI, there really wasn't much. It was the waiting game. Like that for us was the hardest part. So they told us once we decided yes for surgery, that within our healthcare system that we're in, it takes about 6 months before the actual surgery takes place, just getting all the protocols in place. So the one thing that we were very cautious on was not letting June get sick before surgery. So we kind of started our little bubble of, not going to huge parties and not traveling super far. We did that because if she had gotten sick, we would have to have postponed, and that would have been devastating for us. So we were making sure that she was as healthy as we could keep her before surgery.
Gotcha. And was her MRI, did she have to be sedated for that?
Yeah, no, June can stay still, and she loves watching movies, and so she picked out one of her Disney shows, and she was happy as a lark in that machine.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's so nice.
he was okay.
Yeah. Max always has to be sedated. He cannot stay still, so it's
Yeah,
like an extra level of stress for me for
for,
MRIs.
for sure.
Do you mind telling us what area like of the United States you're in?
Yeah, so we see Dr. Gilbert and Dr. Larsch at the University of Cincinnati, and they do have a dystonia clinic. So they are very well versed in movement disorders, and that's in our state. So we're in Ohio. So we travel 3.5 hours to get there, but feel like totally worth it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So once you went through the process, what is step one? Like, what is the first part of DBS? Because I know it's not just one day and you're done.
It's not one day and you're done. And our June surgery was a two-part surgery. I have heard that some patients who do get the DBS surgery do it in one surgery, but
Oh,
our team does it in two, so the brain can heal properly, and then phase two comes, so it's just less taxing on the body. So we had a two-part surgery. And her first surgery was where they put the DBS in the brain, and they stored the leads in her brain too. So that was where they shaped some of the head. More than I thought, more hair was gone. And I think as girls, it's just a little different. June's 10, so she had some nice little patches here. And that was it for step one, the brain surgery portion, which was for me the scariest portion. She went into ICU. That was standard after you'd had the DBS surgery. It lasted about 4.5 hours. The OR was booked for 6. So it's a long time. But they kept updating you as you go. So like we were getting pages that things are good, and they would call us on our phone and say, June looks great, things are going well. And so we were updated the whole time. It was very cool that they did that for us. After surgery, we met with our surgeon, and he explained everything and how she did. And then she, as part of protocol, went into ICU, the pediatric ICU unit, and she was supposed to stay there for 2 nights. She did pretty well, so we got to go home after 1, which was great. Hospital stays can be very long for everybody. And then some of the families that I had talked to before DBS said that the brain portion wasn't as hurtful, or it didn't throb as much as the battery pack being placed. And I agree with that, but it still hurt. And so I wasn't expecting June to have pain medicine, and she did. She did have some pain medicine in the hospital, and we came home with some. But pretty quickly, we were able to wean her off it in like a day or two.
Okay.
So, yes, so that was good. And it was helpful for me to know that it was okay that she was experiencing pain, that that was typical. Not that you want your child to be in pain, but that nothing was wrong with her because she was experiencing the pain. And so we came home, and we had to stay home for 2 weeks before she could go back to school. And we did okay with that. So 2 weeks is a long time to be with just mom, but we did okay. We did okay. So,
How do doctors know where to put the DBS surgery in the brain? Is it different for every kid, or is it all, do we know, like same for KMT2B?
and that, I wish I knew more. I don't know the answers to that. But what I do know is that each side of the brain has a system in place. And each of the systems has 4 leads, and those are the wires that travel to the battery pack. I do
Okay.
know that. And so that's how which it makes it really cool, because then there's 4 different places on each side of the brain that they can try to manipulate with the DBS to help the dystonia. So that's a cool thing. But I do not really quite understand how they decide where to place them.
Okay. Yeah, I just was, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so then after 2 weeks, she got to go back to school. How was she feeling at that at 2 week mark?
So her dystonia is, we see it when she fatigues, and fatigue is something that's really hard for June. She gets tired very quickly. So she was able to go back to school, and our school is wonderful. They did a modified schedule for her. And the one thing I realized is not only did June go through brain surgery, mom and dad went through brain surgery as parents, and her friends at school went through brain surgery as friends that are 10. So it was very important that she go back to school, and they saw her. And it was a beautiful like reunion, but your entire community goes through this with you. So it was healing for everyone to see her and for her to see them. But we are on a modified schedule, and we were even after that, because then we waited a week before the next surgery, which was 1 month later, and that was phase 2. And that surgery, they had to make another incision in her scalp, which I didn't realize they needed to do that. So that one was different for me, but that's where they were housing the leads until they put them down. So she had some hair patch missing here, and then we didn't see any outside incisions as they tunnel the leads through the neck and then into her battery pack. And so that incision, it's about 1.5 inches right now. It'll shrink, but that was right up here.
Okay.
And so that surgery was much more painful for June than the first surgery was. And they said that was typical because of just the muscle and where it's placed, and her neck was sore. But I would say after 2 or 3 days on medicine at home, we were just down to Tylenol, which
Okay.
was, which was good.
How long was that surgery?
That surgery is much shorter, under 2 hours for that surgery. And that surgery, she did not have to go to ICU. She went to her regular room, and we were there for 2 nights for that stay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you leave the hospital, and I know I had talked to you a little bit before, but they don't turn on DBS that day, right?
No,
Okay.
waiting for the turn on was probably the hardest part for us because you're so anxious to see improvement. So March 31 was her first big surgery, phase 1. Phase 2 was May 4th, and we were able to turn on the DBS 2 weeks later on May 18th.
Okay.
That was very cool. And that whole process of that first appointment, no one really explained it to me. And had I known, I would have been a little more prepared for June. So the first programming session is very long. It's about 2 hours. And it was the second appointment of the day for June. So she was already tired and hungry when we got there. And I didn't know that it was going to be so laborious for her. So next time I'm bringing snacks, we're bringing water bottles, we're bringing all the things with us so we can get through. But our doctor did say that the first programming session is the longest, and our second one now will only be about an hour long. So that's good to know. So
Okay.
that first session, they turn it on, and it's not like a big, whoo, everything gets better. Like that's, I was expecting or hoping, even though I knew it wasn't going to happen, this Hollywood moment of June is back to being June. And it does not work that way. And our doctor said that's not supposed to be that way. Low and slow is the process. And so they went through each lead. So imagine 4 different leads on this side and then 4 on this side. And they can do so many manipulations with frequency, amplitude, all of these things to the DBS to help manage the dystonia and the symptoms. And so he asked June over and over, go like this. And we were trying to see if one lead was working better if we turned it up or turned it down, and then you do it to the second and then the third. And so it is very long. They were asking her to try to feed herself with the spoon to see if the movement looked better. So it very, very long, very tedious, very frustrating when you are doing that all, when it's very hard for you to do it anyways because you do have dystonia.
Yeah.
But we left and it's on a low and slow setting, and we didn't see much improvement the first couple days, but we are noticing very slow and gradual improvement for June. And it is slow. And I think our second programming session we'll see a little bit more. And so for June, we go once a month for 6 months and get fine-tuned each month, and they can get a little bit better, and hopefully we see a little more improvement. And then you go, after 1 year, we could have one more session until we see what the DBS can really do for her.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So when she left when she left her second surgery, but before her first programming, you had mentioned something to me on the phone that it was tracking already her dystonic movements. Is
Yeah.
that right?
It is, yeah. So when we left the hospital after the battery pack was placed, they had it on a recording mode. So it was recording her dystonia. And then this is a really cool thing. The DBS, they have different names for everything. You have your paddle that you charge with, which is very easy. You have what looks like a cell phone. They call it the communicator. And then you have a little white, it looks like a mouse. And that's what helps read. It's the Bluetooth that helps connect what the battery's doing to the phone so you can see how charged you are and things like that. And then there's in this a spot that's called events. And right now we have 2 different events that we are logging. When June has a good day, I click it. When she's having a not so good day, I click not so good. And so we're recording those events so our team can look at that to see how they can help the DBS work the not so good days and what was it looking like on the good days. It's very cool.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
So
Lots of
cool.
data that they can collect. What does charging look like for her?
Yeah, so it looks like a scarf. And so it's like a scarf. And one side has a weight that looks just like the battery. So it's even, so it's not lopsided when you're trying to manage it. And so you put the scarf on and it's paddle to the battery or to the incision mark, and it will go dee, 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 and when it hits, it like makes a different sound so you know it's on.
Okay. Well, that's good.
And yeah, and you just keep it on there, and when it's done charging, it'll go da 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 da, and then you're done, and then you're at 100%, and you can check on the machine. I think it's called the communicator. Again, there's all these different names for the pieces of equipment. There's 3. It's not that hard. I am not techie, and if I can do this, if your parent can do this, but you have to read the book. So, and what's really cool that I didn't share, the pharma rep who works with the battery system in the DBS company, he'll meet you. He met us at both surgeries. So he's in the surgery room and he programs everything for the machine and the DBS and the battery. And he's the one that I call, Patrick, love him. He gives you his phone number and you can call him and say, this is not working. I don't think I'm charging right. And he walks through For me, it took some minutes, and he helped us several times when I wasn't quite sure if I was doing it right, and I wanted to make sure I was charging her correctly. So we FaceTime, and he looks at our system, and he tells me what to do. You're very supported.
That's awesome. So as parents, what does that look like for you guys? What responsibilities do you have as parents?
Yeah, I think it's just asking June how she's feeling, to remember if it's a good day. Good days are so great because you're having a great day, to log it. Like that's hard for me to remember to log a good day. A not so good day is easy to log because you're like, oh, good. You're not, you want people to know like it was hard today. So that, and just making sure we charge June on Sundays and Wednesdays. Like that's what we've decided
Okay.
for us that works. And we pop in, she loves watching TV. So we put her on the couch, put it on, and it's really not, for us at this stage, it's not a difficult process to do.
How long does it take to charge?
So for us, for June, it's about 45 minutes, I would say,
Oh,
for
that's
it to
not
get a
bad.
good charge. Mm-mm. And it's never really dropped very far either. We've never seen it below like 60. So I don't know if, and this is a question for our team, when they are able to increase the battery and what they're doing with the DBS, will that make the battery need to be charged more? And I don't know the answer to that, but I assume in my head that's how batteries work, right?
Makes sense. That
It
makes
makes
sense to
sense.
me.
Yeah.
But you can see that on your communicator, right? You
Yeah.
can see her battery, and so you know
You
she
you
needs.
know. Yeah, and June really likes it because what I didn't realize, pretty quickly after we had it turned on May 18th, that same week she had to get cavities filled. And so we had to turn it off. I had to learn how to turn it off because of the cautery system. So there's certain times in certain events that you'll have to learn how to turn off the DBS. And we had to learn how to turn it off because of the cavities being filled. If you take a flight and you don't go through the metal detector, you need to be wanded, and you have a card, and or you turn it off if you have to go through. MRIs, you turn it off. Like there's a whole list of things that you'll learn how to turn it off. And so our dentist was really great, and we learned it together.
Is that painful to have it turned on and off like that?
No, no, you just go like this, click, and it turns off, and then you click it back on. It says my therapy's back on. It's very, that part's very simple.
Okay.
And I do know that it's working because when it was turned off, we could see some movement that wasn't there before. So,
Okay. And does DBS, so in my thought, it really kind of prevents at least it from getting worse, right? It helps improve, but it also stops it from progressing,
that's how I
ideally.
understand it too. Like this, from what we're understanding and what we're seeing and what I'm hearing from other families. So how I,
Anecdotal.
this is anecdotal, yes. And we are education majors here. We are not
Yes.
medical, in the medical field. But when DBS is placed, it does make, I do believe it stops the progression and does help bring back mobility. It's hard to figure out when is the right time
That's the
because
part that,
it is. And DBS surgery, it is brain surgery. So it is hard to know when to do it.
yeah. Yeah.
Each child's different.
Right. And so we're already having those conversations, right, for Max. If it comes, what does that look like? How long do we wait? Uh, and I don't
Yeah.
know. It's tough.
Right. And I'm so glad that our team and that Dr. Gilbert said, go get other opinions from other hospitals and other movement disorder specialists and see what they say. And they all said yes. And they all agreed that Cincinnati was a wonderful place to do it. So I did appreciate getting second opinions. And I think as a family, having that really did help us make that decision that it was time.
Yeah, that's actually very helpful. So moving forward, what do they tell you? Like when can your child start doing things they like to do? When can they
Yeah.
go swimming and
Yeah.
play dates and what does that look like?
Yes. And so our June is slower to heal, I've learned. So her body doesn't heal as quickly. And so we were not allowed to start swimming. And now it's June in Ohio and it's hot and humid and we are ready to get to the pool. And that was really hard. We had to wait for the incisions to be completely healed. So no scabbing and no glue.
Okay.
Getting the glue off is really hard when you have a lot of hair and they used a lot of glue. And so that was a lot to get to and I am not a nurse, so like trying to scrub it was
Oh,
we got better. June and I got we learned and we got better. But the incisions had to be healed here and then the one on her battery where her battery pack went had to be healed. So we just started swimming last week. So it was a process. It was I would say about a month after her second surgery. She does hippotherapy on her horse, and we have to wait another 2 weeks before we can do that. So that's about 6 to 8 weeks, I think, after her battery pack was placed. And I think there's probably different guidelines for different clinicians. I'm sure they all have rationale of when and why they allow certain things to take place. Her second surgery, we were allowed to go back to school after a week, which was great that she was able to go back.
what does it look like now? So you go once a month
Hmm.
for the next 6 months, and
Hmm.
then that's at the end of the 6 months, you slow down to how frequently you're there.
Yeah, so after 6 months, well, our last session is in the end of November of 26, and then what I believe is we'll go back in the summer of 27. So 6 months after that last session, we'll go. So at the 1 year mark, we'll go back
Okay.
for our final programming. And then I believe it's just adjustments after that. And that I don't know yet. We're still right out the gate of programming. We've gotten one under our belt so far.
And then what's overall maintenance look like? Like, do do our kids have to have the DBS replaced, the battery packs replaced?
Yeah. So they give you, there's two different options that we had. We could do a larger battery that was not rechargeable, and that is good for 5 years.
Okay.
And so our doctor said that people choose that when they know they're not good about recharging.
Okay.
So I would say like the older population probably who aren't used to charging phones and different technology tools. But for us, that didn't seem like an option. 5 years goes pretty quick, especially, when you're a parent. Like I feel like they fly.
Yeah.
The battery that June has a 15-year guarantee.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, who knows what 15 years from now will look like. So she's got this for 15 years. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
And is there anything like any advice you would give to me if Max starts on this journey? Anything you didn't already share that you would want me to know?
I would say if you can find other families that have gone through this, that really helped. So there's three other KMT2B moms that I reached out to who have already gone through the DBS process, and to hear from them helped reinforce our decision. So I would say that, and then log all your questions because there's so many questions that you'll have with your family and your child that the clinicians should be able to answer.
And if parents want to reach out to you and get some more information, is there a way that they could contact you?
Yeah, there is. So on our website, we have an info at email. Happy to do it there. You can message us on our social media platforms. Facebook is what I am most able to check. So we have other social media platforms that I may not find the messaging. That's what Elizabeth is for. So yeah, just reach out. I'm happy to talk. I think that's really great. I think the one thing about the foundation is it did help support us through this entire process, having Elizabeth, having other KMT2B moms that were texting and calling, and we're in it together. And it isn't, we're not, there's not many, but we're not alone. And so I think using our network and our community, KMT2B, we're tough, and it's good to connect.
Yes. So if you go to our website, kmt2bdystonia.org, you can do a contact us. Lynn and I both see any emails that come in through that. It's info@kmt2bdystonia.org. You can also send us emails that way.
Hmm.
We will definitely be responding. But Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate you being open and honest and sharing
Yeah.
your journey and June's journey so that way us parents who are not quite there have an idea of what's to come and how to navigate it.
Yeah, no problem. And please reach out. I enjoy connecting, and I know Elizabeth does too.
You can find us at KMT2B Dystonia.org. We have all our information for our nonprofit there. You can learn a little bit about our board, our medical advisory board, and our mission and what we're here to do.